Should we wait? Huh?
No, we are live in Facebook and YouTube. Not invited to much participants. Good evening and good morning to rest of the world uh, present here in Facebook and YouTube live. I am Rudranaran Das. Take this privilege to warmly welcome you all to World Human Sciences and Management Conference 2021 and 22. Invitation to Global Dialogue on Agnotological Context, Disciplinary Practices of Social Sciences and Policy Frames, an initiative towards think time and rethink episteme. Distinguished participants and partakers, it is a glorious moment to extend my warm wishes on behalf of Center for Adivasi Research and Development, as this international conference is built with the intent of active and interactive learning and discussion organized by Center for Adivasi Research and Development in collaboration with Indian Institute of Management, Sambalpur, Central University of Odisha, and Ravenshaw University, Cuttack. On behalf of the Center for Adivasi Research and Development, I convey my heartfelt gratitude to our patrons, Professor Sunil Kumar Pandey, Vice Chancellor, Ravenshaw University, Professor Mahadev Joyaswal, Director, Indian Institute of Management, and Professor Sarat Polita, Vice Chancellor, Central University of Odisha. The convener of this largest virtual conference, eminent Indian historian, Professor Chandi Prasad Nanda, an eminent policy activist, writer, and philanthropist, Mr. Charudar Panigrahi. Ladies and gentlemen, the main outcome of this conference is to come up with the national and international framework for the education system in future. And the crux of this conference will be the use of digital technologies such as artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and virtual reality that is being increasingly adopted after the outbreak of COVID pandemic. We hope this conference would help students, faculties, researchers, and all to expand their mental horizon. Ladies and gentlemen, the Center for Adivasi Research and Development is a leading research-oriented institution promoting ethnographic, empirical, and evidence-based research for engaging and addressing the challenges that 21st century globe is facing today. The prime agenda of this institution to come up with potential policy solutions for social change while believing in the idea of 3D. That means debate, dialogue, and discussion, and expertise, experiencing, and education. The institution focus on marginalized communities and work for their livelihood to protect the nature, culture, language, and identity in particular. The age of modernity has witnessed that change is the only constant phenomena for societal purpose to enhance knowledge. Our information work for them is methodical and avoids paradoxically framework which is neglected so many centuries from theory to become practice. Our center sincerely believes in the concept of social marketing, which is seriously looking for non-profit marketing and builds new social entrepreneurship for check and balance mechanism to glorify generations to come. Center for Adivasi Research and Development come to serve with the holistic approach of critical thinking in education to fill the gaps and plan accordingly for the voiceless communities. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me tremendous contentment to introduce the most esteemed personality of today's symposium. Is none other than we have with us Professor Sunil Kumar Pandey. Dr. Pandey is the director of IT and UG Institute of Technology and Science, Mohan Nagar, Ghaziabad. Is the ex-regional coordinator of CSI region, Uttar Pradesh, Delhi, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, Haryana, Punjab, and Uttarakhand. Is also the ex-chairman of CSI Varanasi chapter, with an experience of over 23 years in the industry and academia, and having interest in cloud, blockchain, database technologies, and soft computing. Dr. Pandey has also 10 patents 2 copyrights credited to his name. He was published 65 plus research papers, book chapters with leading publishing houses, including Springer, Wiley, IGI, etc. He has been a regular author of articles in different print and online platforms, including articles, interviews, views, and has published 11 edited volumes on different relevant themes of information technologies. He has been providing a coordinating training and consultancy to various reputed organizations, including Indian Air Force, Manipal Group, GDA, etc., and has been speaking at different forums in India and abroad as a speaker, panelist, expert lectures, and guest talk in various summits, conclaves, national, international conference, seminars. Professor Sunil has conducted 25 plus national, international conferences in association with AICTE, CSI, DTS, and other leading organizations. He has also conducted large number of FDF, FDP entrepreneurship programs supported by AICTE, DST, and UGC. So, welcome Professor Pandey to World Human Sciences and Management Conference 2021-22. And today the topic is suggested by you is the importance of online education in the 21st century's life world, which will definitely be an eye-opening session for all of us. With this note, I stop here and invite Professor Pandey to initiate his talk. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Das sir. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, please.
So, Das ji, Bikram ji, and all the audience, those who have joined in this session here, this very important topic, in fact. We all know that education, it's something which creates that sense of understanding and perceiving the things in right perspective, right way. And that's how the societies have been differentiated from one to other. To come to online education system, if we have a look on historical perspective that how this education system, especially in Indian context, and of course that global, it goes through with the global too, that the introduction of Western education is considered to be a historical significance for the emergence of an education policy. And when it comes to, especially in Indian context, we all know our old scripture, the Indian education system talks about a different kind of pedagogy, different kind of way of delivering the contents, way of training the people by gurus. And that conventional and traditional way, it's something which has always been there since the humanity started thinking on these lines. But when it comes to the modern education system, it is mostly influenced by the Western education system, which is considered to be historical significance for the emergence of the current and modern the system of delivering the contents and engaging the students. The Charter of 1698, if we have a look on historical perspective, we see that the Charter of 1698 clearly stated that it was the duty of English ministers of religion to give education along with their primary duty of spreading the gospel. But the East India Company, when they came to India, they had realized the political significance of a policy of religious neutrality, and therefore refrained from carrying out the directions of Charter of 1698. So, however, the company encouraged emotional activities by establishing schools with liberal grants in it. This is not the time to go into those details. I will just, before taking a dive into what the online education system is, if we see that The St. Mary's School was established in Madras in 1715, which was followed by establishment of two more charity schools in 1717 by the Danish missionaries. So in 1718, a charity school in Mumbai and another in 1731 in Calcutta were opened. In 1787, two charity schools for boys and girls separately were established in Madras, but their curriculum was mostly limited to the acquisition of 3 R's, that reading, writing, and arithmetic, and of course, the Christian teachings. So hence the missionaries and their supporters in England began an agitation with a view to protesting the anti-missionary policy of the East India Company. And of course, their agitation received considerable support and ultimately led to the formation of Charter Act of 1813. So the act laid down the condition that the British government shall set apart a total amount of 1 lakh of rupees for the education of Indians. And this was the first time in India that a formal education policy was put in place for directing the course of education in the country. Then, since the independence of the country, the education policy in independent India after the Sargent Commission, which was in 1944, and following the transfer of power in 1947, the Central Advisory Board of Education decided to set up two commissions. The first was one to deal with the university education, and the second to deal with the secondary education. And that's how in India, a formal education system started coming up. And then, of course, time to time, with different objectives, the policies were revised, then with different focus and different objectives. And today, we all know that in 2020, finally, government of India, they came up with the new education policy, NEP 2020, which is now considered to be National Education Policy 2020. So that's how the education system, which we talk about, the formal education system, it is started somehow. But then, in every era, every time, the way the education was to be imparted has been greatly influenced by the thought process, changing thought process of the people, those who are dealing with the education, with educating the kids, to make more engaging, to make more effective the delivery system. There has been different pedagogies were introduced, and as time progressed and technology has evolved, now we see the education system is getting transformed almost every day with the advent of new technologies, new pedagogies, new systems, where now we are focusing on making our education system the learner-centric rather than keeping it the teacher-centric, which used to be the traditional education system. And in this entire process, the objective has been that rather than keeping the classes, rather than keeping the students in a monolithic way, monotonic way of classroom, conducting the classrooms, why can't we think in different ways where we can make the students participating in the classrooms? And that's how different ways, different mechanisms started. And we as a teacher started thinking on different ways how to make students more engaged inside the classroom so that the classes becomes an engaging place, a learning place. And that's why this focus is now said to be from teacher-centric, where as in a conventional mode as a teacher, we go to the class, we discuss what we want. And then I'm not saying, I don't mean that this is done by every teacher, but mostly in general, that used to be the pedagogy. But now with the advent of technology, with the support of technology, which is available now, with the consistent efforts by the teachers, by the policymakers, with the experience of individuals, we all have been involved in finding out some or other way through which these classes could be made more interactive, more productive, more efficient, and more result-oriented. And that result-oriented means that delivery is synced in such a way that the student sitting out other side is able to align himself or realign himself, or able to receive what we are as a teacher trying to impart inside the classrooms. But if we look in last almost 3 years, before 3 years, we all know that the normal thing used to be, many of us even would not have thought that the conventional degrees like undergraduate courses, the postgraduate courses, which are considered to be full-time program, would be delivered in online mode, because online mode was were more known for skill enhancement, for skill upgradation, where the learners used to have certain basic foundation, and that then for the purpose of self-learning or enhancing certain skills, this online mode was more used. And the institution, those who used to have that video conferencing setup or otherwise, it used to be considered as a luxury. And most of the time, these systems were set up with an objective to create an infrastructure where we can collaborate with other people, those who cannot come physically, or people, those who are sitting outside the country. They can also be invited to join these students to share their perspective, to address them, and to provide them exposure what is happening in and around. And primarily, a primary objective was not, in fact, impart the education. But we all have seen, and this has been true, because once I was traveling to Kanpur in one of the universities for conducting some examination there. And we were sitting there, and there were professors from different subjects, including history, culture, and other different other departments too. So I asked why we want, because I belong to an institution which primarily operates into the engineering, the management, the information technology, the pharmacy, dentistry, and likewise the professional courses mostly. So we are expected also, and then being in Delhi NCR, this is an advantage that when we visit other places, we see how other institutions are doing and what kind of technology, what kind of pedagogy they are following. And if something is good, we also try to incorporate those things. So I offered them that we offer these courses, and if you could spare some time and address our students in online mode, if you find it difficult to commute from there to Delhi NCR, why don't you address these students in online mode? And trust me, I had a serious hesitation. They were very hesitant and the comment was something like that. Do you really think that online mode can be used for teaching? This is good for meeting. This is good for an interaction. But if you want to deliver something which is useful for students, this online mode, we don't think that it would be that. That's the kind of thought process people used to have. And there were a significant number of people, whether those who were resistant, those who were not very comfortable in this transformation process. But in last 3 years, is when this pandemic COVID-19 has created a situation when everything was kept on hold, precisely on 20th March, when countrywide lockdown was announced by Honorable Prime Minister of India. And then in almost every state, the situation was more or less same. And when it was announced, we all were clueless that how now things will move. And then suddenly, people started exploring other options. And the other option came, because I'm sure many of you would appreciate that during that time, we used to have different kind of applications. Like Skype was one of the popular applications which most of us were using for video conferencing and those kind of options. And then when we started exploring, we found that there are limitations with the existing applications. We tried to find out suitable application. We tried to create the kind of infrastructure support was required, and everything, trust me, everything was from home itself. There was none of us were in campus to lay down this entire infrastructure and create that connectivity, which could help all of us to establish and initiate a system where this content delivery, the education, the classes could have been conducted in online mode. So all of us had explored it in different way. We initially, starting with Skype, then people tried Google Meet, then people tried Zoom, then some of us tried WebEx. And then with every application, we had our own. The Microsoft Team, of course, was one of option. And then people started realizing that giving their own conditions and requirements, which application is going to be more suited. And then we all experimented. We all tried to find out one of the most suitable solution for our own context, because someone found WebEx more useful. But then once people started realizing, they found that it requires lots of bandwidth. And if bandwidth is not that much sufficient, then we start facing different kind of issues. Google Meet, when people started, they found it that it cannot, it has limited number of connectivity. It has limited number of sessions. Then people started exploring that. How can we get the professional works? And like Zoom. And likewise, these organizations which were offering these tools, they also responded back with equal intensity. And that's how, in very less time, we were able to create an alternative way to keep things on. So this online, at least these 3 years, 2 years precisely, from March 2020 till now, this has created a kind of awareness among people about information technology, about the platforms, these online platforms, which otherwise would have taken only God knows 5 years, 10 years, or what. So now this online platform, online mode, it has created a kind of alternative where if everything was kept on hold, just imagine if internet would not have been there, our houses would have become these separate islands, because nobody was coming out even from the houses. We were not able to connect with anyone. The phone was only option, but to your family member, to your friend, to your close ones, we could see only because this option was there. So these last 2 years have given a feel of its use and importance to everyone. So when we say this online education system, I'm not going how effective it has been, because people based on their own experience will have different perspective, will have their own opinion. But one thing for sure, this online mechanism has helped all of us to keep things on, even when everything was expected to be stopped. I tried to prepare a few slides. Dasji, if you allow, can I share my screen?
Yes, sir, definitely.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
It's visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you see, and this is true for every vertical, we all know that when we talk about a process or a system or a mechanism, there are certain things which emerge as new edge, to which we call, which give birth to different kind of applications, different kind of technologies, different kind of tools, which keeps emerging by applying those new edges. Because once any application comes to us, it is not that on day one itself we accept it. Over the period, we use it, we experience it, and then over the period, it creates a kind of confidence. It creates a kind of acceptability among people, and that's how it starts becoming the part of established norms. And then with the advent of technology, with the changing needs of time, like 25, 30 years back, when we used to study, mostly we used to find the girls' college, boys' college. could have been were very common. That co-ed education system was primarily in convent schools and others. But today, if you see, those things have disappeared because with the changing time, with the increased awareness and the kind of changes which are coming up in our thought process, we start accepting it. And when we start accepting it, those emerging trends, which over the period gains the confidence of users, become the established norms. And for some time, they become part of the part and parcel of the life. Then after a certain time, when new technology comes, when thought process changes, with experience, we start realizing that the existing processes need certain kind of revision. Then the old norms get replaced by certain new norms. And that's how this entire cycle takes place. And this is true for the education system too. Like when I was mentioning that way back in 1698, when the charter was the charter was formed in British education system, primarily it was taken care of by the Minister of Religion. He was responsible to ensure that the education is given is a primary responsibility by giving knowledge on one side, but at the same time, it was attached to the religious system. So religious mechanism, religious process were there. So primarily this was coming under a specific, with a specific objective. But over the period, when people started realizing that this is something which is not exactly delivering what we are expecting, then people started trying to find out the flaws in the system with on their own in their own ways in thought process. When many people start thinking on the same line and they come closer, they start discussing and deliberating on it. After deliberations, people have tendency to get convinced. When they feel convinced, then existing norms are changed or updated. And those updations over the period get the previous things either completely disappear or replaced by new norms, or in some or other way gets updated or modified. And that's how this entire cycle continues. So it was 1,000 years back, there was a system, there was a process. We change of time, we change in thought process, we change in exposure, we change in experience. By assessing the effectiveness of existing system, those certain things were thought of, they got emerged. Over the period, their credibility was assessed, evaluated, and they became part of the norms. And then over the period, those norms were again challenged, again got it. So this is the cycle which keeps continuing, because the only thing we all know, which is constant, is change. And the most difficult thing which comes in our way, that we are we feel hesitant to accept that the change is need of the hour. So from the conventional system, now today when we look around, we found these 7 C's. And this is what the essence of online system is. Now, this online education system, when we talk about, this provides the best way to connect with the people. When we are connected, like people, those when we were studying in PG and we started thinking about the PhD, people, those who have done their PhD 30 years back, 25 years back, they will be in position to appreciate that how things have got changed. If we had to find something about our topic of PhD, we used to have very limited options. And our guide used to suggest us that, yes, somebody there in Hyderabad is Hyderabad University, you go there, you meet with him, you discuss with him, he will help you out. And then from Varanasi, you had to travel to Hyderabad or to Delhi or to some other place. Because to find some information, to find some good research paper or to find some good input, you had to do that, because this Google tool was not available at that time. the connectivity, the reach of people was very limited. Now today, even if you start thinking about something which you are not aware of, you type in Google, you find millions of pages in fraction of seconds. So at least this technology has started creating a connect among the people, that if you are connected, you can communicate. Once upon a time, we used to have a scarcity of data. Now today we are flooded with data. During those times, it was challenged to find out relevant data because data was not available or very less available, or scattered in such a way that we had to find and search where exactly it is through some reference or through our guide or some professors. But today, if you type a topic or some theme on Google, you find millions of pages there. And now it is difficult to find out relevant data because you are flooded with data. So problem remains same, which was 25 years, 30 years back, the problem remains same, because from millions of pages, finding out what is relevant for you, this is again a big challenge. That's where you need different kind of mechanism. I will come to that later. So this online platform, this has just started creating an opportunity to connect with the people, to communicate. When you communicate, you come to know about others, what they are doing, on what is their thought process, what they are thinking, what they want to do. And then you try to correlate your thought process, your work with those inputs. And then it is very easy to get people with like-minded people with the same interest or related interest and collaborate. And then once you collaborate, then behind that collaboration, we all know that there is an objective. There will be something which needs to be done. And so a coordination kind of thing is required. When you coordinate and then co-work. When we used to work 25, 30 years back, the emphasis was how I'm doing. When 25 years back, in 97, when I used to work on mainframe systems, and I used to say that, yes, I'm a COBOL programmer. It was good for my survival. Because everyone used to say he's a COBOL programmer, he's working on mainframe systems, and mainframe systems are, there are very less people who work on mainframe systems. So he had a very bright career. So being a COBOL programmer, working on a mainframe system, I had that luxury to feel that I am something which is not very common. And I could afford to remain as COBOL programmer. But not today. If you think like that, means the applications used to take even years to implement. Now, today, after 25 years, who has that much time to wait? People want that their problems needs to be resolved at the minimum possible time. Otherwise, it is of no use. So in parallel, the team works, and that's how that activity, the assignment, which we like. If I used to work on an application, it used to be an assignment or activity. But now people started thinking that a single activity, that sequential form of sequential process to complete any task is not only time consuming, but with the increased complexity, because requirements were changing, complexity was increasing. With the increased complexity, if we go with the conventional processes, it is going to take years to implement, which will be of no use. And that's where people started thinking that now those activities needs to be combined to form a project. And once it comes a project, means multiple people would be working on different activities, and then result of those activities are going to be integrated to form a system which ultimately contributes in attaining certain objectives. So co-work was a culture which got developed. And once you co-work, you complete the work in a team, everyone in the team grows. So co-grow and then coexist. So that coexist in this technology, the online systems, not only in education, but otherwise also, they have created an opportunity for everyone to join hands together and move forward. What otherwise people say that if we work together, probably our journey becomes more easier. So that part, the essence of online education system, that it provides an opportunity to connect, that efficient way of connecting. And now if you look around, the entire technological advancements, they are working on facilitating that how you can have a reliable, connected environment. Now people are trying to, of course, that 2G, 3G, 4G, 4.5G, 5G, and then 6G, and these Gs will keep coming because our requirements are changing. The amount of data which we want to, because once we connect and communicate, ultimately this is transmission of data. Now, more you communicate, more content you send, more load on network traffic comes. When more load comes, you need more bandwidth. When more bandwidth comes, you need different hardware, different devices, different people, those who can help you in keeping those things on, even if that workload increases. So that connectivity, people are working to make sure that connections are secure, they are reliable, and they are available when it is required. Initially, what used to happen in 25, 30 years back, when initially this net connectivity was there, and people of my age would appreciate that when we used to use this internet, the only way was to connect with the telephone line. And when you are accessing that internet, it used to take 15, 20 minutes to get connected. And if some phone call was received, immediately it used to disconnect. And then again, 10 to 15 minutes for connectivity. That was the time from where we started. But the requirement, the uses, the performance of the system was so improved by this that people kept working on it. And then different ways, different mechanisms were evolved where this connectivity became stable, faster, reliable, and secure. So once that connectivity means that infrastructure was there, that infrastructure has become so sophisticated that now today, when Mr. Dash was giving his opening remark, he mentioned about AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, augmented reality, virtual reality. Now, what this online system, what technology is helping in us, we have certain things in physical mode which we can see, we can feel, but there are certain things which does not exist at all. But it gives, when you see it, it gives a feel of its presence. The virtual reality. We know the virtual means something which actually does not exist, but it gives a feel of its existence. But when you take a physical object and that virtual reality, and you place, like you make your one video of a minute, or we are interacting here. So now, if I'm speaking, I'm a real object. If you're listening, if we are in engagement of discussion, both of us are physical object. But now suppose if my video is taken when I'm speaking, and it is placed in an environment which looks like that it's a classroom. Means currently what how we are interacting, somebody takes this video, it removes that background, which is now currently there. It replaces the background with a classroom or discussion room or auditorium or seminar hall. And something is happening there. So what is happening? In fact, there is something which is not there. It is surrounding the real object like me. Now, this is called augmented reality, because you have something real and then you augment it by adding something virtual. So that's a combination of this and that it is becoming very popular when it comes to the content delivery mechanism. We see animation, we see videos, and those videos are created in such a way that when you look at it, you have a better understanding of those scenarios, those things. So the online systems, they are providing this wonderful opportunity to connect without physical movement. You are able to communicate because this connectivity is creating a channel where data, video, animation, whatever information you want to get transmit from one place to one source to destination, you are able to do that. Like if we are communicating I'm able to speak. And if any of you want, you can unmute yourself and you can also speak. So we are able to communicate with each other. When you communicate, in fact, we transmit our thought process, our perspective. And all of us, those who are part of this session, we all may have our own different perspective on the similar issue. When multiple different people, when they come, they share their perspective on a common theme, that everyone has his or her own perspective, and all of us get something new to our own perspective, which may help us in improving ourselves and other people, those who are joining in the group. And that's where that possibilities of collaboration exist. So this online platform, on the face of it, when we communicate, many a times, many of us do not realize the strength of this platform, that how it is happening. Like today, if we have to, if Bikramji and this interaction was planned, none of us consider ourselves the Brahma of this topic, that we all know everything about it. That's a kind of interaction where I'm sharing my perspective, what little bit I have explored over the years. All of you have your own exploration, your own experience. Now, advantage of these sessions are to share our perspective, to find out something which can help us in identifying some new areas of research per se. Maybe something come to our mind that this is something which actually may be considered as a future product. So that communication and this online platform, it breaks all the barriers. You don't have physical barrier. You don't need to come together on a common place where you are spending money in traveling, in commuting. Then, of course, coming from different places, it has its own limitation. It is down. So this online platform, the best part, which I foresee that in time to come, because of these features of reliable connectivity, reliable, secure connectivity, more efficient way of communication, whether it is email, whether it is video conferencing, whether it is text, whatever we can think of, to collaborate. I'm working on a research project with a professor who is sitting in Philippines, and Finland. We met only once in India, 5-6 years back. When we met, we started discussion, and then rest of the discussion was either on emails, or sometimes we connected through Skype or Zoom or those tools. And now we are in position. Very soon we are going to conclude that research work, and I'm sure people will appreciate. People will give their feedback. So while sitting here in Ghaziabad, and the person sitting in Finland, still we are able to communicate, we are able to collaborate, we are able to share our work, get feedback of each other and our team. And that's how the team here and team there, they are working together. And now we are almost able to complete it. So once we do it, everyone in the team, whether it is my team or the team sitting at a different place in different country, in different continent, subcontinent, they all are equally contributing. They all are getting equal importance. They all are getting equal benefit of it. So online platforms are going to be the future for this. There's a common question which normally, I wanted to, purposely I have shared this screen. If I ask you, what do you think about this screen? These are 4 faces. But the important thing is that these faces are of non-existing human beings. These people, in fact, does not exist. This is what technology is doing. That's a wonderful example of machine learning. You visit any good website, you will find the chatbots there. and some name of those chatbots are given, and then you will see some face. These 4 faces are used in different chatbot applications. And these faces are created by taking attributes of different available faces, combining different attributes of different people, and then to generate such kind of faces. This is what the machine learning is doing. This is what the technology is doing. Means you have the technology as a tool to create something which gives a feel of its existence. Like these things are imaginary, these are virtual things, these are virtual faces, but still we are able to create these faces and use wherever we want. I'm not saying this is cloning. That's an image creation. Why? How it is created? Thousands of images are there. It takes some input from one, some input from one, some input from there, some input from there, and then tries to combine to create certain alternatives. And then after removing noise, we get such kind of images. So technology is helping all of us to create the content in such a way that it gives a feel that it is real, like this. So online education is all about the technology inclusion in the process of delivering the education system with more efficiency, productivity. Of course, there had been a common question when people started these online classes, and still people have their own perception about it, their own thought process, that how effective these online classes are. And I will not go into those details because I will not say that they're wrong, because ultimately that personal touch, of course, in most of the cases, it is missing. Because as a teacher, when you are in the class, when you're speaking with the 60 odd students, you look around the classroom, every student you have a look, and by just seeing the face of a student as a teacher, we make out that whether he is able to follow it or not. And then we have different ways to make sure that he also understands or she also understands. So that those things are missing, and it's a separate this could be separate matter of discussion. I will not go into those things, because then it may not be possible for me to justify all those things, because ultimately at the end of the day, this is experience of all of us. All of us have our own way of teaching, our own way of communication, and then assess the efficiency of every mechanism what we are following. So this is what the digital age we are living into. Now, if you see on this screen, what actually the education system involves into. The content, of course, the content delivery, it's something which is very important. The model of thinking and doing, it's something which is very crucial. The content sequencing and pathways, the affiliate network, the signal to the job market, the credentials of estimated competency, the mentorship, the feedback leading to mastery, the supervised coming of it, and that it all together should lead to a transformative experience. This is what actually needs to be addressed, because these are certain things. Unless these things are taken care of, these things are ensured, that the content delivery, because most important, why we need a classroom. Ultimately, as a teacher, we all prepare presentations or slides or notes. Why can't simply we send those PPTs, those notes to students and ask them to prepare on their own? With the role of the instructor, role of the teacher is very important, because the presence of the teacher and the padding, it not only increases the confidence of a student that yes, what they are doing is correct. And that's why many times we see that if a teacher says something, the same child goes to his home and parents, if a father or mother, if they on the same topic, if there's something, they say something else or tell something else, even if that is true, the first thing what a student says, that my teacher was saying like this. That's the kind of confidence students have. So the technology, until unless it is used in such a way that it creates an engaging, participative, and it creates interest also among the students, so that they are able to see happening inside the class what they want. And that's what increases their interest inside the class. So content delivery is very important. Like even if we prepare our PPT presentations. Now, while PPT presentations, it's an art how to prepare your presentation. It is said that once you see something happening, or you listen something, or you do something, the different degree of understanding it has got. So how to encourage students to develop their thought process to apply what they are thinking in a, I will not say in controlled or directed way, but monitored way. That freedom to explore. And that's where the technology has very important role to play, because many of the things which are repetitive in nature, as a faculty, you may spare yourself to think otherwise and to find out some innovative ways. Keep these repetitive things with the technology, with the system. And then once we are in a class, it's very important that how we plan ourselves, how we sequence the content, because preparation of content is very important, very crucial. But equally important, whether those contents are arranged in a sequence which creates a flawless flow, and it becomes easier for his students to understand, to absorb. If it is missing, trust me, contents may be one of the best contents of the world, but still we may find these students in the class while discussing about all these things. Then, of course, all these things we can do, but until unless a support infrastructure is there. Most of the time what happened, what the problem most of us have faced during this lockdown, that all of us as a teacher, as a student, we joined hand together. It was not a challenge for faculty only to create the content, to find out alternate ways, but it was a big challenge for the learners also, for the students also, to find out the way how to cope up with this new platform, with a new way of teaching. Because most of the time, what I'm sure all of us have experienced, that the camera is switched off because the student doesn't want to show himself or herself. And we don't want a student to speak, so we ask them or keep them their audio muted so that disturbance is not there. So if the students are switching off their camera because they don't want to be seen on a screen, because they don't want to show you that whether they are attentive or not. And we don't want to listen them because we don't want to create noises or otherwise. On the other hand, the genuine reason was that once you travel from these metropolitan cities 50 or 60 kilometers far, we all know the kind of quality of internet services are available. Because of that, even if your content delivery is very good, your contents are very good, but because of those frequent disconnection, there's a disconnect, and that discrete transmission of information to the student, it used to reduce their interest. And I'm sure that most of us would have got this feedback that, sir, ma'am, we are trying to connect it, but our bandwidth is not that good, so we keep our video off. This was a real challenge too. On one side, of course, people were misusing it, but this was a truth also. And then we all know that once a student joins a course, the ultimate objective ideally, the objective of taking admission is to acquire knowledge, to make himself more learned person in society, who is more society friendly, sensitive towards society. Those all good things are are there, and it should be, because as a human being, we all need to have those attributes among ourselves. But the ultimate objective of a student is whether he is going to get a job or not. Now, I don't know about your experiences, but what I have seen in and around, there is a feeling among students that though we have paid the fee for 2 years of the courses in which we were admitted, but nothing was done at the level of institute, because they don't consider this infrastructure facility as an investment from the institution, number one. And second, they have craved out on their own level of learning. And this is reflecting on the other side when now during this lockdown, when companies, those which were coming for placements, now you will find a common comment that these students have studied online. So what is their strength? We all know. Now this sarcastic comment, because we can't say that the students, those who have gone through this entire course because of this forced situation of COVID-19 in online mode, outrightly making comment like this sarcastic comment like this, that we know what is the level of understanding of these students because they have studied in online mode. Now see, if a person from industry, if he or she comes from this kind of remark, it becomes very difficult for a student to accept the effectiveness, even if it was effective, because of this perception. He finds it very difficult, and then he starts losing his confidence. So then, of course, we all see the assessment, the examination of the system. Suddenly, because of this online mode, none of, I will not say none, that will not be correct, but most of the universities were not ready for this online mode. And when it came to assessment, there were universities which were waiting that let this COVID-19 effect reduce and we will conduct examination in offline mode, because they did not have that infrastructure. And even if they had infrastructure, the university, those which have infrastructure, they had infrastructure to conduct the examination at most of the places, like in quiz mode. Now, while writing the examination, even students were coming with a feedback, sir, we did not study for solving quiz. If I was a student, if I were a student of the computer science, I was not asked to write a program or to do something. There was no assessment of my competency here. And it reduced the confidence. So that infrastructure was something which was missing. The mentorship. Why it all was happening? Probably we all were new to this entire setup. We all were trying to convince ourselves that how to prepare ourselves in a situation like this. So it was very difficult for us to convince ourselves too. And that's where the mentorship was missing. Many times, the common complaint, the common issue which was raised by the faculty or otherwise, that a student, they keep their camera off, even if we ask them to make camera on. What should I do? On a screen, we can see only 18 or 24 students. The rest of the students, even if they have camera on, we can't see them. We need to make this screen to go to the next screen to see that. So we can't see that. Means, of course, we all have those regions for that. The feedback making. When students are physically inside the classroom, we have our own set way of taking feedback. Now in this entirely new scenario, there were people, those who were creating some Google form with the questions, asking students to respond to those Google forms by sharing the link. Now, a student who might not have attended classes in online mode, when he gets a link on WhatsApp group of his class or her class, he's the first person to give the feedback. And we don't know from where it is coming. So this online education system, it's something where still that's a powerful tool, undoubtedly. It creates an opportunity where we can connect across the globe. We have that opportunity to interact with the people with whom otherwise would have been really impossible. But still, we all need to understand and work on finding out some ways and means to exploit these advantages, exploit these benefits to make this system more effective. And for that, the first thing which is required, that as a teacher, I need to be convinced. Because ultimately we will have to accept that, like the way technology is coming. I was talking to one of the dentists in a dental college, that you have never studied the augmented reality, virtual reality. You have never studied the computer, how the computer system works. But when tomorrow, if we go for treatment, you have to use those telemedicine tools or telehealth tools. So from where you will learn this technology? Ultimately, you are not a student of computer science. So now the future is of how much you can learn on your own. Tomorrow, if the competency of a doctor will be more judged as how he is able to make use of technology in doing things in right perspective. The way technology is coming up, the way different tools, technologies are coming up, he does not go to a formal class. But what he understands by applying those things and what is available there to get connected and to get exposed to these new things. Because for every upcoming technology, with every upcoming tool, you may have a brush up session where a familiarity session you will have, but then you have to learn on your own. And only God knows that after 5 years, 10 years, what is going to happen when somebody will submit his or her resume to a company. The company will say, okay, you have done your degree program, but what are those things which you have learned on your own? And that assessment might be on their own self-learning process. And that's what looks like that future. We are heading towards a future where we will be assessed, not only based on our, of course, it may have some weightage, but then more weightage could have been given to the self-learning process, that how much you have learned on your own to supplement your degree or something to make it more effective, more efficient. And that's what is happening. Now, there are people, those who are working on those systems where the self-learning systems could be ensured. Now, if you see the way the higher education, the systems are there. This is the global higher education market forecast. And if you see this chart, you will see that this depicts the entire world, that by 2030, around 380 million students would be getting enrolled in higher education system, which have that potential to increase to 407, to almost adding almost 100 million in next 5 years. And it may double, almost double, around 2040. Whereas in 2016, there were 216 million. Now, if this is the way, this is the pace when the people are becoming aware, they are getting enrolled into higher education system. Now, it requires a serious introspection that how we are going to address this growing population of students in higher education system. And this is this data is not is taken from very reliable source. I mentioned that source also. Now, if we are from 260 million in 2016, if we are heading towards 594, maybe even more by 240 in next 18 years, with this growing population of students, those who are expected to be part of this higher education sector, the conventional systems, the conventional infrastructure may not be able to accommodate this growing demand. The conventional way of delivering mechanism may not be appropriate during that time. And it needs to be introspected, it needs to be discussed today, so that the collective wisdom could be utilized to identify the ways and means that how technology, by including technology, the technology inclusion, with the common wisdom of collective wisdom of the people today, we can lay down the foundation for a path which will lead to an effective, reliable, efficient, and result-oriented mechanism to accommodate this growing population in higher education sector. And this is happening. This growth is not restricted to one subcontinent or the one subcontinent. The spread is across. And if you see the proportion, the developed countries, of course, that variation is comparatively less. But if you see the East Asia and the Pacific, you will see that growth is enormous. And we all know that this is the reason, when I say reason, this is the part of the word where actually the infrastructure needs to be reviewed. And that's where the collective wisdom of people, those who are involved into academic delivery or to academic administration, requires to come together to give thought to these futuristic requirements and to evolve a mechanism, evolve a self-sustainable system, which can help in creating the required infrastructure, the mechanism, to make sure that this growing population is taken care of. And the challenge, the challenge which is going to be, if this is the scenario, from 216 million, if we are heading towards 594 plus million people, the challenge is going to be the access. How to provide access of education to this growing community, growing population. How to make sure that quality improves. And of course, cost is one of the important factors. So access, quality on a lower cost. And we all have been seeing that where technology and online platforms have been put in place, they are able to address all these three factors to make sure that quality education is imparted, and MOOCs are one of the best examples for that. Since this is still evolving, I'm not advocating that online education system will have solution for every issue. But of course, it has that potential to address all those things. The only thing which is required, that what are those things which needs to be addressed to make it more useful, more efficient, to address all those needs which we are seeing. I will leave this slide with you all, because this is something which addresses all the aspects, whether it is content and curriculum, because this is something which is very important, because contents and curriculum, until unless it is relevant with the context, with the changing needs, with the changing time, because once upon a time we used to live on isolation. That is, student of physics used to be a physicist. If someone was from chemistry, he was a scientist in chemistry. If someone was in engineering, he was an engineer. But now today we are in an era where all these things are converging and creating way for something different. Like if a project is undertaken by a pharmaceutical company, a company like TCS, it is working on a project. TCS means, I'm just taking the name for the sake of example, that a company takes the project to develop for that pharmaceutical company. But once it starts working on this company, that project is from pharmaceutical. He needs a pharmacist who can guide him, who can advise that team. Then, since this is health related issue, any such kind of development will have its impact on health aspect also. He wants a general physician. Every technological advancements, the hardware which is coming up, it has its effect on environment. it requires an environmentalist also. So I mean to say that if you take a project, that project is no more of a specific vertical, a specific field. It requires people from different verticals to come together, that's cross-disciplinary when we say, and then to discuss and devise something which is relevant, useful in a specific context. And it needs to be kept reassessed every time, that if some new requirement comes, that curriculum, the contents are taken care of. The assessment, without a process assessment, a proper assessment mechanism, whatever good content and curriculum we may have, but if it does not have that process assessment, does not mean that give a question paper of 10 questions, ask a student to write, he goes to library, he takes questions of 5, 6, 7 years, and then we all know things are taken care of. Until unless that assessment process assesses the real learning of a student, it does not become engaging. We may have different opinion about it, but assessment process is equally important. And then learning practices, how we are actually following the pedagogy to make sure that the learning happens. The teaching practices, the organization, the leadership and values, the connectedness, the infrastructure, all these things needs to be addressed when we talk about the overall holistic development. And that online education system fits very well here to address all these things. Now, I was going through a research report. We all know that as an institution, we all have to submit our details at AISHE. So this was the data which was released by AISHE, which talks about that eligible age group enrolled in higher education in 2019-20 is 27.1%, which has rose from 26.3% last year and then 24.3% to 2014-15. Means, of course, that number, that increase might not seem very relevant, but one thing is there, that we are seeing that this number is growing year by year. If that number is increasing, now the biggest challenge before a faculty, before the academic community, is to make sure that the students, those who are coming to the higher education sector, they get something which is relevant. Because the only thing which will keep their interest alive is something which is relevant in current context. Because if a student passes, he gives the message to his juniors or her juniors, and it is passed to subsequent batches. It is passed to the new coming batches also. And that feedback is very important. So if in India also, if we are seeing this growth, means we are contributing in that from 216 to 596 million enrollment, which we are expecting, that we are right on track. So we are contributing there. If you see here, I will skip these slides. And if some of you want, I can leave with Bikramji. Now, among the target, which is to achieve higher education, GER of 50%, which is the target of Government of India, it will require CAGR of 6% in enrollment over the next 15 years. Now, see, with this swarm of new students entering the system, more than 90 million by 2035. So ultimately, what I was mentioning, that the new education policy, where I'm sure all of us have fair idea about it. It talks about inclusion of technology, number one, and then every day government is assessing it and coming up with new policies, new setups. Like last week, I was reading somewhere that University Grants Commission is identifying some institutes to offer online programs And those online degrees will be no different than the offline degrees. Means the government is also the people, those who are involved into this think tank, those who are working relentlessly to address this issue. They are also realizing this, that to achieve this 50% CAGR by 2035, and the way this new eligible students are being added every year, this existing infrastructure will not be able to deal with this pressure, because ultimately the pressure will come on existing infrastructure, and it is not possible to create physical infrastructure where a huge voluminous population could be accommodated. So alternative way they are finding it, that this online system is something which is becoming equally important, and to promote it, because when you talk to someone that yes, he has done a degree in online mode, the first thing which comes to one's mind, that online, oh, the first thing what people point is whether it is genuine, whether it has any credibility. And that's why even as a parent, when our kids are going for a study, we say join a full-time course. Online, distance mode, many of us, we don't differentiate these things. But now people have started thinking on it, and that's why probably this has the think tank in India, which is working on this education system. They have realized this. The only way to address this concern is to go for online. And how to promote it? By promotion means there would be no difference in online degrees and offline degrees or physical degrees. And of course, it has its own inherited challenge, and how to maintain the quality. What they have done, they are identifying around 8,000 odd institutions, and the criteria I remember is that any institution which has figured in top 100 institutions of NIRF twice in last 3 NIRF ranking, means they're working on a system which will ensure that the quality is maintained there, because we all know NIRF, what NIRF is. Once you submit any information, you don't have that right to update it or edit it, bearing certain information which every year you change there. The mechanism, the process what NIRF follows, if you go through what the NIRF ranking talks about, you will see a substantial weightage is given to the perception. And to calculate that perception, your information, institution information is sent to thousands of people, those who are in industry and academics. They assess it, and based on their perception, marks is awarded to the institute. So to create a good perception about your institution, unless you do something which people notice, which impacts the people thought process, and it remains there, it will be very difficult to figure in top 100, and that too consecutively. So the first thing what they have done, that any institution which has figured in at least top 100 list twice in last 3 years, number one, or you have NAC accreditation with a score of 3.26, that is A+ grade. So government is also coming, they're appreciating it. It itself speaks the volume that what online education system is going to be and where the work is going to be placed. And tomorrow, in near future, we may see that a student sitting in the United States, he may get admission in one of the programs at IIT here in Delhi, Kanpur, or wherever. He may complete the program in online mode and get a degree, that world recognized degree. So the government policies, frameworks are also aligned towards that direction. So the topic which this session addresses, that online education system, importance of online education system, it is something which is accepted by people, those who are deeply involved into this process. Of course, there are lots of awareness needs to be created about this system to gain the confidence, to convince the people about its acceptability, its credibility, its effectiveness. Proper training needs to be done. Because when we started online teaching in 2020 March, most of us, we didn't have any formal training. We just explored on our own. We tried to find out certain other alternatives. A faculty who conducted a quiz using Google form, he shared with his colleague. The colleague among themselves, they learned and they started doing that. There is no guideline for that. There is no application available. And if it was available, it was not procured at the institute level. Probably even as a faculty, most of us were not aware of. So if we have explored it, we have tested it. Now, as a faculty, as a teacher, we have to appreciate it also. And I'm sure as a teacher, as a faculty, we all will have to own this responsibility to make sure that the need of the hour, the importance of the online education system, and the limitations what it has. Because as a teacher, only we can understand this, what kind of problem we have encountered, what we have faced. We need to chalk out those issues, create a collective document, and submit to the authorities. And trust me, if we do that, there are people to go through that and to address and address those issues. Because the people, those who are involved, I personally know many of them, and they are so open. They are not with closed eyes and ears. They are open. And when I interacted with them, they say, we had discussed, we took suggestions from many people, but there is always a possibility that somebody who has not given his feedback or her feedback, he might have something very important, which might not have been addressed in it. So it's time to contribute at our end to make sure that if we have faced something and we understand that this will enhance this entire process. It will help not only to the students who would be becoming the part of this entirely new system, but as a faculty, it will provide us also an opportunity to keep ourselves exploring and coming forward with the issues. Dasji, I think Mr. Das, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes, sir, please.
Should I stop now? Because already it's 9 p.m.
Sir, it's okay. If you want to rewind, then it's okay, sir. Don't worry.
So there are a number of things which are happening because as a teacher, why I'm sharing this, because all of us who are present here as a teacher, we all have gone through that pain of not having something, because you have book in hard copy. That's a very small issue, that you have a book, but students cannot visit the campus to get that book issued from library because everything was closed. Now, as a faculty, if you take PDF file of that book and send to a student or provide to a student, or you tell the student, go through on this site, download that PDF and read it. It's still our thought process that touching that book, opening that book and going through, it's something which is more, which everyone feels more comfortable. Now, suddenly overnight, you can't change it. But then we started working on it, and we started creating, like we were teaching at our institute. There were faculty members, those who created PowerPoint presentation. And then, trust me, a mathematics faculty who created a presentation of mathematics. And then on his own, he explored that how I can add narration to it. And the equation, the problem, what he was solving, he was speaking as if he was talking in the classroom. He recorded that entire along with the presentation and sent to students. Trust me, it was so appreciated by students, because when they started running that presentation, that entire narration was there. So the technology is enabling all those things. And the important thing is that are we open to accept it? Whether we like it or not, the time is coming when we will not have any escape from this. So let's try to do a bit what we can do and see the future in a better way. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your very enlightening and very engaging ideas with exploring thoughts related to all these things. I will back shortly. I would like to invite Dr. Saban to give a thematic address to wind up last talk.
Thank you, Dr. Jaina. Hope I am audible.
Yes, please.
Okay. So, well, at the outset, let me really take this floor to congratulate Professor Pandey for giving a very thorough and very detailed presentation of the very pertinent topic. In fact, the topic is very important and very relevant as well, I must say. Also, on a lighter vein, let me to also take the chance to say that the presentation was absolutely heart-touching and very reflective, and the remarks were also very disciplined and balanced, because Professor Pandey at some point of time has really, judiciously given his opinion in terms of managing the pros and cons of online education, given the fact, the scenario or the context where we are talking, and it's really very useful to all the audience, I must say. Now, coming back to the point, as I said, that as we all know that the change is the unchanged law of nature, and given the last couple of years that the way we have experienced the whole socio-cultural life, our personal life, so to say the educational life, we have witnessed a paradigm shift in terms of the pedagogic process. And thanks to the online teaching platform and this new mode of blended learning or online teaching, somehow we have been able to mitigate the challenges. But yes, this is not the only solution, or we cannot say this is the solution. But at the same time, we cannot negate the fact that the way the pedagogic process has changed. In fact, if I put it in a very simple term, like time has come when we have moved from pen and paper to a paperless kind of classroom. In fact, now we are talking about the virtual classrooms, and this is the reality. This is going to be the next, next world, and we cannot negate this fact. And that's why we have to, change. We have to revisit our pedagogic practices, and of course, to address this, online teaching or teaching through online mode is one of the best way to do, right? Now, having said that, when we come to the other side of the online teaching, there are a couple of issues which has rightly been, highlighted by Professor Pandey, because teaching as a profession, because since I belong to education background, so teaching is not just about the knowledge domain, right? It is somewhere it is an integration of the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domain. And when we talk about online teaching or teaching through online mode, somewhere the gap is very much visible, as we cannot see the process that could orient the teacher from a humani purpose, from a humani prospect, right? That feeling, that attitude, that motion, that emotion, to a great extent, is very difficult to build on when we teach through online mode. And this has been a persisting challenge of teaching through online mode, right? Now, again, you very rightly said that when you go to the market sector, or let's say the job market, there it is not just about the knowledge domain, but it also requires your soft skill. It also requires your articulation, your presence of mind, the way you touches the heart and head of the interviewer. And somewhere online teaching, at least in my knowledge, we do not have as such evidence where we could build this kind of skill or soft skill, we can say, through online mode of teaching. Now, again, when we come back to the online mode of teaching at different levels, now somehow this can be addressed when we talk about higher education. But what about the school education? What about the elementary grade? What about the secondary grade? Right? And when this thing goes much deeper, particularly in terms of the context, like as rightly mentioned by Professor Pandey, if you go to at least 30-40 kilometers interior from highway, then this problem becomes very much visible. And when again you come back to the demographic profile from where we are operating, like the tribal areas, the inaccessible pocket, the LWE affected areas, then they are always at the vulnerable side. So again, it boils down to the basic question of where does that access and right of quality education lies. Can this be answered through this? No, it's very difficult. Now, as I said right at the beginning, that online teaching may be one of the solution, one of the potential mean to facilitate the teaching learning process. But at the end of the day, you cannot take it as the only source. It should be viewed as a supplement source or an addition to the entire teaching learning process. And I'm really very much happy to see the way new education policy has visualized this. And in fact, I was very much pleased when I was looking at the data when Professor Pandey said that from 26.1 now we have jumped to 27.1 or something like that. And when we look at the new education policy, the target of 50% GER in 2035 and this gross enrollment ratio, if at this or little bit higher side, if we accelerate our pace, then probably this ambitious target can be achieved. But again, as I said, that it sounds good when we talk in pen and paper, but the grassroots reality is something different. And the way the whole market economy is operating, the socio-cultural, the other factors that are controlling this entire education sector, to be very honest, at some point of time we need to revisit our strategy. We need to rethink our models of operandi, because I always feel that let me put it in a very simple word, like if you look at the data pack and all these things last 1 year back, so it was somehow affordable. But all of a sudden now, if you look at the market, then this has increased to a different level where people are again hesitant to purchase the data pack, or if at all they are purchasing, they are giving a second thought, because this data pack or this this internet access is not only used for the teaching learning purpose, but it has also been used for entertainment purpose. So somewhere the value, the utility and the usage of net services or this kind of platform has to be very cautiously thought of. Otherwise, what will happen, rather than serving it as a good servant, it will act as a bad master. That is my only apprehension. But nevertheless, we cannot ignore the fact that online teaching is going to be the next generation tool, and it has an enormous potentiality. Otherwise, things would have been really in vain as we experienced in last couple of years. So I feel that with concrete strategies, with good brain like Professor Pandey, who can come up, who can think of strategies that could really issue the grassroots realities. And the bottom line is that right of education, quality education, is a fundamental right as far as the Indian Constitution is concerned. So at no cost we should deprive the last children of our country. So with this note, I again congratulate Professor Pandey for giving us a very holistic picture, and we look forward for your comments, sir, and of course some kind of strategies, because as you have rightly said, like IITs and IIMs are the institutions, are the the fertile brain of our nation. So probably in the next coming decade, next coming academic session, they will be the game changer who can bring affordable and sustainable packages that could mitigate those basic issues. So with this note, I am once again handing over and congratulating Professor Pandey for such a a reflective and very vibrant session, engaging the whole participants till the end. Thank you so much, sir. Over to Dr. Jena.
Thank you, Dr. Bab. Sir, as you know, you are running short of time, but it's an invitation to global dialogue and mapping mind series. So we have to interact with 2-3 questions, which is probably most important because I heard so many of your presentation from last 84 minutes. It's one of the best, I can say. One of the best I can say. Your presentation is slightly mesmerizing me. Such a wonderful, not only a great professor of our country, a very vibrant brain, and also because you slightly holistic and very scientific manner try to drag the future of our country in terms of online education. Sir, I would like to know what lacuna we have when country like Canada, they have the digital university in 1992. Why we should bring in 2022? What is the lacuna and what is the policy trends? What is the policy players are doing from more than 30 years? Your answer, sir.
Sir, what I see is the mindset. What happens over the period, we use something, we are part of a system, we are part of a process. And we all know that it is very difficult to break the existing setup which is around us. And when something like this happens, the acceptance of change is very difficult. So probably initially when people thought about this digital university, that was the time when still the information technology in country was in infancy stage in 1992. You will appreciate that when we used to access internet in 1992, we used to have that NIC, that naked connectivity, which used to take at least half an hour to get it connected, and then it used to take half an hour to connect and then disconnect in few minutes. So probably that absence of an infrastructure might be then the economic condition of country, because country was not in that state to spend that much money, because that was the time when that liberalization was just coming in country. So on priority, it was not there. Because ultimately the mindset, the thought process, and then that the people, the group of people, those who are responsible for reforming the education, I will not say that they didn't have that vision. Probably they might have given a thought to it, but prevailing conditions would not have allowed them to go for that. But today, when that awareness among the people is huge, last 2 years have created that awareness, which otherwise would have taken more than a decade. That has created a sufficient background for its acceptability. And that's why in last 2 years, we see a quantum jump in acceptance of this technology and pedagogy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, you are talking about future, and you also talked about 7 times of online mode and 8 times of offline mode. When you are entire talk depend on these 2 words. Sir, I would like to give you a very holistic approach and take you to the back, 2600 years back past, when Nalanda, Takshashila and Vikramshila, these universities are pioneering into the world education system. What wrong with us? These Harvard, Cambridge and these Oxford guys came, quote unquote, white universities. What white universities taught us, and why not we should have comparing these our universities into these 3, and what mindset lacking behind the process of this university pattern? Answer, sir.
Sir, see, the universities, what you have named, whether it is Harvard, Cambridge, if you see these universities are 300, 350, 400-year-old universities. These are. Now, after almost 75 years of independence, the kind of institution on the pace on which these institutions have got developed, I think saying this, that the quality of Indian institutions are not good or lacking that much, will be very hard critic of it. Because over 300, 400 years of establishment, the consistent effort towards improvement. And then when these institutions were established, there was no, means that competition was not there. These institutions had not that kind of competition where if you create an IIM in Shillong, that IIM Shillong has to compete first with IIM ABC. So these institutions have come over. The people, those who are associated with these institutions, sometimes because of that inherited process, it is possible, because I have not been part of that system, so it would be difficult for me to comment on it. But what I see that an institution is started with a great vision. In 15-20 years, you see that institute acquires the position and it becomes more, it attracts more students than an older institution. But in next 5 to 10 years, the same institution loses its place from the priority of students. Means either there is a lack of consistency in thought process, because the vision, what an head of the institution is taking forward, until unless the successors are aligned with the consistency. So the policy, the objective, the vision needs to be framed, and whomsoever leads, that vision always needs to be kept in mind. If the vision is common, the effort will be achieving to that vision. And if consistently efforts are made, if we are able, or if some of our IITs are able to make position in top 500 in next 20 years, 25 years, we may see some more institution in that list. But of course, it requires consistent hard work with sincerity, with determination towards the objective for which these institutions were formed.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is the last question for you today's night, sir, because I know you are already almost spent so many times with us, and such a wonderful speaker you are, and at the same time such a wonderful gentleman you are. Sir, today's universities are very much appreciated to give certificates rather they produce knowledge. And I have a little bit doubt on particular the research, the epistemological violation is concerned, and particular the copy methodology is concerned. Many universities are believing today in 21st century life world, they're believing in this system, particular the PhD and MPhil degrees based on copy-paste methodology. This is very popular methodology. Sir, do you believe in particular online education system we have set the benchmark valuation of research scholars in terms of thinkers? We produce thinkers for next generation, shaping leaders for tomorrow. And an intellectual mind should think for next 100 years, not for 5 years like politicians or any elections. What your assumptions and what your observations are from your last 30 and 32 years of your own experiences?
Sir, in fact, you have touched the core of the issue. In just one and a half minutes, what you told, that is the crux of the issues which needs to be addressed. Like 15 years back, this copy and paste was very common. And that 8 to 10 years time was something where people, the institutions were also involved. There are many institutions which came to notice of everyone, and we all know them. There is no need to name any institution. But this online mode at least has created a deterrent. Like today, if any institution, especially after a change in the procedure by University Grants Commission in 2016, and of course before that in 2009, just one guideline that the synopsis and thesis needs to be uploaded in Shodh Gangotri and Shodh Ganga. It has largely addressed the issue. Of course, it is not yet mandatory for university and institution, but we are heading towards in a direction where it is in next 3 to 5 years time, this is going to happen. Now, at least that plagiarism issue is about to be addressed, number one. Second, what is happening, sir, in my opinion, that we are still having the tools of 19th century, thought process of 20th century, and expectations of 21st century. So there is huge mismatch between what we are doing, what we are thinking, and what we are expecting. Until unless that, and it is not that easy to address this issue. Probably such kind of sessions, such kind of discussions, such kind of deliberations where people, those who are actually involved in academics, academic research, when they will keep discussing on these things, deliberating on these things, coming up with certain pointed out notes to take it forward further, I think such discussions will address this issue. Because when you pointed out this, that institutions were involved into these malpractices, I'm sure the people, those who are present and listening this discussion, if they are not aware about it, at least they will become aware. When we are discussing it, at least these people will be aware that if a thesis was found plagiarized, even after awarding the degree, it was taken back. Not only degree was withdrawn, but they were pushed behind the bar. So this awareness about the consequences and need of core research area, because as a researcher, whether we are in academic research or industrial research, as a researcher, we are not just satisfying our own needs, but our research work is addressing to certain practical issue in and around, to address some issue which will be useful for common man. By doing that, we not only make ourselves satisfied, in a way we are serving to the society, we are serving to the nation also. And the day people will start thinking on those lines and deciding that my research needs to be translated into a product, into a service, into a facility, which can help an individual of society to solve his or her problem, probably we will not be required to be recognized by any Harvard, Cambridge, or Oxford. We will have our own identity. But it will take time, and people like you, because I never thought of, Dr. Let me admit this, I never thought of that I will speak on this topic. It is your wisdom, it is your persistence that motivated me, inspired me to take this topic for discussion. I don't know how much justice I could do, but I must say that today, while sharing my perspective, I'm really very happy, and I'm really thankful to you, Jena sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you for your nice and kind words. I am not deserving all these things, sir. Such a wonderful.
This is your humbleness, sir. This is your humbleness. You're too humble. You're too down to earth. And that's why you are doing this cause without any expectancy, without anything. You don't expect anything from it except to just create a platform where such discussions can take place. So thank you so much, sir, for this noble cause.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, I will end here with my own quote. Research is the highest degree of the social service. And with this note, I once again thank you so much from my heart, and looking forward for future engagement. And I wish you should one of the greatest mind of the India. When the digital university formation going to soon, you have one of the part and parcel of that. This recommendation to the MHRD from our side, from IM Sambalpur, from Ravenshaw University and Central University Koraput as well, on the auspicious occasion, particularly the World Human Science and Management Conference, I will take the responsibility. Professor Pandey will be the one of the most significant mind of digital university, and this recommendation perhaps from our side, it's not a very great recommendation, but it's a recommendation to MHRD, to Tribal Ministry, and to other ministry as well. Thank you so much, sir. With this note, I would like to invite Rudranand Das ji for go for a formal vote of thanks. And namaste, sir. Good night. And looking forward for future engagement, sir. Namaste, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vikram Kesri Jana, for inviting me. And I'm speechless after the very wonderful deliberation by Professor Pandey. It was really eye-opening session, and you can just kind of operate and all these aspects of online educations and the future perspectives and what should we can do in the sector of technology and social science research is very importantly you mentions all these aspects. And also you are rightly said about the new education policy and what should be the consequences of new education policy and how the government should interact with its machineries. Definitely your talk and your insights will be very helpful for our audience, and especially Dr. Jena is interacting with you, and thank you Saban Bag for interacting and sharing the ideas with Professor Pandey. Thank you so much, Professor Pandey, for your contributions and time in World Human Sciences and Management Conference. I have to acknowledge the institutional contributions here, in particular Ravenshaw University, Sambalpur, IIM Sambalpur, Central University of Odisha, and my special thanks to our patrons, the head of the institutions of these three universities, Professor Dr. Sarath Palita, Professor Dr. Mahadev Joyaswal, and Professor Sanjay Kumar Naik, and our conveners, Professor Chandi Prasad Nanda and Charudat Panigrahi, for their relentless motivations to listen the contributed minds, listen the and organizing this mapping minds series. And sir, you should happy that we are organizing we are just organizing more than 100 talks, and approximately you are the 105th speaker of our seminar. And my special mentions to Dr. Vikram Kesri Jana, who is conceptualizing these Mapping Mind series and World Human Sciences and Management Conference. And another series is going on in every 23rd on the remembrance of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. In every 23rd, still January 23 of this month, with NUJS Kolkata. So thank you, Dr. Jena, for conceptualizing these ideas, and especially to invite such eminent personalities that and sharing their contributions to the academic world. It's a very important and also emphasize work by you. And I would like to thank Dr. Saban Bag, Dr. Nupur Patnaik, Shubham Das for helping me to carry forward this session. And thank you so much all the audiences who are joining with us in Facebook and YouTube live. And thank you everyone, Dr. Muhammad Osama, and anyone others few people are joining in Zoom. Thank you. Now I would like to conclude the session with a very good night. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you.